Former President Donald Trump has been indicted yet again, this time in a third criminal case having to do with his alleged attempt to overturn the 2020 presidential election. Now, he has been indicted on 4 counts, and we're now learning more about what the indictment says. So the special counsel apparently obtained contemporaneous notes Pence took on his meetings with Trump, okay, according to this indictment, which cites the notes as evidence underpinning the case. Okay, so his vice president meets with him. This is in the lead up to January 6th. Pence is writing notes, and those notes are apparently pretty damning. On January 4th, 2021, Trump met with then Vice President Pence's chief of staff and Pence's legal counsel. Citing Pence's notes, it alleged that Trump and co-conspirator number 2, remember there are 6 unnamed and unindicted co-conspirators, knowingly made false claims of election fraud in the meeting and asked Pence to either challenge or reject the legitimate electors from 7 states. Okay, so this is part of the fake elector scheme where they wanted to do away with the actual electors and install these phony electors who would cast the vote in that state, in the various states, for Trump as opposed to Biden, the person who actually won the election. When the vice president challenged co-conspirator 2 on whether the proposal to return the question to the states was defensible, co-conspirator 2 responded, quote, "Well, nobody's tested it before," end quote. And that's what's stated in the indictment. And then the rest of the quote is, the vice president then told the defendant, "Did you hear that? Even your own counsel is not saying I have that authority." Now the defendant responded, "That's okay, I prefer the other suggestion of the vice president rejecting the electors unilaterally," which of course Pence did not have the right to do and Pence did not do. So Francesca, what say you about these allegations?
I mean, just another person who furiously took notes after they met with Donald Trump because they were like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Just being in that meeting means I am implicated. We're talking every single lawyer he's ever had, all of these, Trump stooges, obviously his own vice president being like, I need to write this down because, oh my, I can't believe what just happened. And if they come after me, I need to prove that like this was not my idea and I wash my hands of this. I feel like the only people who didn't write, like Giuliani, I mean, there's only so many cocktail napkins he has stuffed into his loose trousers that he can actually write on. The dude does not carry around a briefcase, we understand that, unless you consider a handle of whiskey a briefcase. But like, so it's just like, I wonder, this is gonna be very interesting. Like who's not going to be indicted with him and who is saved, right? Is Pence, has he saved himself? Whereas the Giulianis, the Eastmans, the Sidney Powells and the other, who knows, is Mike Lindell in there? Like the true believers who actually have way more cachet with the base than anything else. I mean, if Mike Pence have tried to deny the democratic process by sending fake electors and just, like Chuck Schumer has to wrestle him to the ground. I mean, come on, MAGA would have loved him.
That's the problem. Like Chuck Schumer would
he'd been like, stop that. What's happening? Oh, I guess Trump's back in.
This is wrong. Like, if we have to leave the protection of our democratic process to the likes of freaking Chuck Schumer, we'd be doomed.
Yeah, no.
Okay, to say the least. Yeah.
But anyway, it's gonna be very interesting, right? Legally, like who protected themselves, who didn't, and what will that land them?
Yeah, totally. I am curious to find out who the co-conspirators are and whether they will be indicted. And I do want to talk a little bit about reporting from earlier in the day, prior to the news of these indictments coming out, regarding a theory about how, in an attempt to defend himself, Trump is likely to throw some of his closest allies under the bus, which honestly is pretty indicative of Trump's character. I mean, I've seen this from Trump before, so I wouldn't be surprised. And so who are the scapegoats? John Eastman, Rudy Giuliani, 2 individuals that you mentioned, Francesca. So let's get to the details. As Mediaite reports, the attorneys were acting on Trump's behalf, but in this legal strategy, Team Trump would argue it was the lawyers leading Trump rather than the other way around. It is an argument that the former president likes, and the team is on board with it, one Trump advisor bluntly says, then somewhat ominously adds, John Eastman and Rudy Giuliani gave a lot of counsel. Other people can decide how sound it was. And by the way, judging by the testimony given by both Giuliani and Eastman, they knew that the advice that they were giving to Trump was not sound, unfounded, bad advice. In late July, Giuliani admitted in a court filing that statements he made publicly and repeatedly about Georgia election workers allegedly committing fraud were false. And when Eastman testified before the January 6th committee in June of 2022, he admitted that despite knowing that using former Vice President Mike Pence to overturn the 2020 election was illegal, he pushed for it anyway. And by the way, Francesca, just to answer your question about Vice President Mike Pence, no, it does not appear that he will be indicted. In fact, he has been clearly cooperating with this investigation. And the fact that he was unwilling to do what Trump and his cronies were urging him to do, which is, actually install the fake electors and overturn the election on behalf of Trump, I think will save him in the end of the day. I don't think that he's gonna face any criminal charges for it.
It'll save him legally and politically, somehow in this circus that we live in, be the nail in the coffin. Totally. As if he was ever next in line, right? But the fact that he didn't go to the mat for Trump, whereas, I don't know, Ted Cruz and Paul Gosar and other weirdos in the House and Senate, like they were willing to do so. So I don't know where you put that in the scheme of this, like the sort of lineup of stooges and I don't know, like idiots. But we're gonna see repeat names here because we don't know actually what the RICO case in Georgia that is being built against Trump right now by Fani Willis, the Fulton County DA. There's a dozen, I believe dozens of people who are gonna be indicted in that case. And that's why it's gonna be RICO, because there's so many people. Trump is the top of that as well. So we might see Giuliani and Eastman, again, the people who've been advising him that Georgia can send fake electors, to say nothing of those electors themselves and people on the ground there. So yeah, we're gonna talk about this, but he better fundraise off this one. I don't know how much money he's making each time that he gets indicted.
Well, we know that he has already spent, his campaign has tens of millions of dollars on his legal defense, and that they're currently fundraising for a legal defense fund. And remember, this is for a self-proclaimed billionaire who also used the office of the president to enrich himself financially and direct business to his various Trump properties. It is incredible. And this is also the guy who fundraised hundreds of millions of dollars from his supporters following the 2020 election and allegedly claimed that those funds would be used to prove his case in court that the election was stolen from him. He did no such thing. But nonetheless, people are gonna give him money. They're gonna keep doing it, and he's going to use it to defend himself in all of these cases, I suppose. And yes,
which is wild because if you throw your lawyers under the bus, who's left to represent you?
Well, have you seen some of his newer lawyers? That's who. That's who.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the B team. It's the bench warmers who are like, well, let's dust off this law degree I got on a trip to the Caribbean.
And by the way, in regard to the latest Trump indictment in the January 6th election meddling case, Republican lawmakers are reacting the way that you would expect. Lots of whataboutism. What about Hunter Biden? Yeah, what about Hunter Biden? He didn't pay his taxes. He had an illegal weapon. He's dealing with the, ramifications of that as we speak. He's not an elected lawmaker. He's not the president of the United States. What about Hunter Biden? Like, really? That's your what about, like, squirrel that you're pointing to draw attention away from the fact that Trump did these things that he's now suffering some consequences for, will be prosecuted for. We don't know what the outcome of the prosecution will be, but nonetheless, I do want to give you Kevin McCarthy's statement about this. Biden's DOJ tried to secretly give Hunter broad immunity and admitted the sweetheart deal was unprecedented. And just yesterday, a new poll showed that President Trump is without a doubt Biden's leading political opponent. By the way, Biden said no such things, okay? But nonetheless, everyone in America could see that was going to come, what was going to come next. DOJ's attempt to distract from the news and attack the front runner for the Republican nomination, President Trump. Did he commit the crime or not? And if he didn't commit the crime, why are you so worried about it? Could it be because there's mounting evidence showing that Trump played a role in this plot to install phony electors to go against the will of the American people and hand victory over to Trump when Biden really won the election? These people are disgusting. Like the fact that they are willing to provide cover for a man who, first of all, would turn on them in a second over any small slight. And the fact that they're willing to sacrifice our democratic process in order to do so is just so incredibly disgusting. And then they turn around and they talk about freaking Hunter Biden. I don't care about Hunter Biden, okay? I don't care to protect him, but I also don't really care about his tax crimes. He's suffering the consequences of that as we speak. Let's wrap it up, let's move on, okay? Your squirrel isn't distracting me.
Right, exactly, and also like, I love that Republicans are so mad that, that honestly, the biggest event maybe of our lifetimes has been January 6th and was January 6th, and shoe on the other foot. Oh my God, how breathless they would be at covering this, rightfully so, because it's wild, all right? A coup against the United States, from the call coming from inside the building, wild stuff. And they're so mad that like Hunter Biden's D pics aren't nearly as exciting as what happened on January 6th. Sorry, you're gonna need a lot more on Hunter. I mean, keep digging, I guess, and use precious resources to do so. But they're just so mad that they like no, we all know this is your guy. It's all projection. It's all, your guy is the one. Kevin McCarthy on the phone that day. Hey, Mr. President, can you call off your people? He's like, they're not my people. No, they are. They're waving MAGA flags.
That's right, that's right. He called Trump, urging him to intervene to stop the chaos, and Trump refused to do it. So who knows, maybe Kevin McCarthy wants us to be distracted by the Hunter Biden squirrel because of his role and what he knows about Trump's actions on that day.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.